The bracket is in. I torqued those guys down to about as much as I could while laying down with the pry bar, or one of those guys, breaker bars. I put Loctite on all of the bolts because they had it when I took it off, so that's about it for that guy. Steering stabilizer is in. It was all pretty straightforward. I didn't need all of the hardware that they gave me in the kit. The bolt down here on the stationary side of the stabilizer I did need to reuse, so save that guy. It's 18 millimeter on both sides. Don't lose it. Now I think that's about everything that I need to put on before I can assemble my control arms and springs. I don't need to worry about doing the sway bar quick disconnects, those drop down arms. I don't need to do those yet. The track bar, I've got that mount in. I don't need to actually put in the track bar yet. So I'll double check my parts, but I think I'm ready to do the springs, and I'll look up what the eye-to-eye distance needs to be for the control arms. Sway bars are buttoned up. Quick disconnects, they're pretty nifty. I've always been a fan of them. I've only had them once before. They're not that tricky to figure out. Rough Country does this deal where you scan a QR code and then it gives you the instructions on your phone. I thought it was pretty easy, but just in case somebody doesn't have the instructions or is maybe missing it, I'll just show you a close-up of what I did. So a little quick pin, there's the bottom end, washer, nylon lock nut, and the little stud goes through there, goes up, it threads into your top end, and that bushing is all self-contained and the stud's already in there. You just stick it through here and tighten down the lock nut. It's like a lock washer jam on the other side, and then this guy bolts right into your stock sway bar. And there is the top. You've got like there's the top of the bolt, you've got a lock washer and then a fat washer. So, and then you tighten down these jam nuts. That's it. A little bit about the track bar. It's installed right now, and I think I've actually got it where I want it, but I don't know for sure. So it just goes into this end. You use the bigger bolt up here. It's 3/4 over here, and I don't remember what it is on the back side. I think 18 millimeter. Down here, this one's a 17, and then the nut, nylon lock nut, goes inside this cavity on the back here. There's a hole, and you can hold that with a wrench. Now I've tightened both down, but the idea with this one from Rough Country is this collar, as you rotate it up and down, it's going to expand and contract this track bar, so it uses the stock mounting location on the bottom, and then it mounts right up into this lowered bracket that they give you with the kit. And what you're going to want to do, I eyeballed it while it's up in the air. Now I think this is going to mess up the geometry, but I just eyeballed the rotor over here and the rotor over here, and it's roughly in somewhat the same spot. But I'm going to actually put the wheels back on once I'm done here, set it on the ground, let all the suspension realign, jump on it a couple times, and then I'll actually look on the right and left to make sure my rotors are lined up with some sort of standard point on the actual Jeep. And if I need to push it one way or the other, I'll just twist this little collar guy. Now when I'm done twisting that, you just tighten these guys down right here on the front of the collar, and that'll lock it in place so that it won't move. Just like one of the collars on your drag link or your tie rods. Okay, now the last thing for me to do is this transfer case drop down kit here. So, man, it's really bright. This is my transmission tunnel, and here's the transfer case. Well, the cross member right here. I have loosened all these bolts. They were 15 millimeter for me. Now I'm getting the transmission jack to go up under here, and you need to support the transmission right by its belly so that you can drop this guy down. You're gonna take out all these bolts, and then you can lower your jack a little bit. You don't need to remove the actual crossover from the transmission in these holes. You can leave that there. You're just gonna lower the transmission down a bit with the jack once you've got these bolts on the end taken out. And you do need to get out this, the studs here on the front. If you've got an earlier Jeep, you'll need to remove those. But aside, or once you're done with that, all you're going to do, well, I misplaced the kit, but it's basically just some bushings. They might be metal, they might be rubber. They'll look like little hockey pucks or little giant washers. And then you're basically dropping the transmission crossmember down. So I lost that. I'll find it and then show you guys. Okay, I have the transmission supported. I've lowered it down a bit. I took all the bolts off. The other side has already been done. The back two are just, they're bolts, they thread out of there. The front two on the Cherokee are studs, at least on these older ones. So the idea here is you do the double nut method. You take the nut from the other side, thread it all the way up on the bolt, and then you stick the bolt from, or the nut from this side, and then thread it up and butt them together and use one wrench up top, one on the bottom, and then tighten them together so there's a ton of friction. And then all you've got to do is put your wrench up here and you can just back the stud out basically. Now they may slip and you may have to retighten them, but that's how you back out these studs. And then you're just going to slip the hockey puck or the spacer in between here, and you're going to put your new bolt all the way up through, and that'll effectively drop your transfer case. Another pro tip. A lot of times once you get one side lined up, you're not going to be able to get the other side of the transfer case lined up. I attached a ratchet strap to ideally the rear of the car. I used my lift, but and then you can just crank it. It doesn't take much. It's just kind of hard to pull it yourself when you don't have any leverage, and then line up the bolts and make sure you don't strip anything. So use a ratchet strap if you need to. Just got the shocks in. I may put the stickers on, I may not. I don't know really how I care about stickers, but cool. Today we are going to be doing the steering, the front end on this 91 Jeep Cherokee. So if you didn't catch the other parts of the video, this one will actually be a separate video, but we've been lifting this 91 Jeep Cherokee 4.5 inches. It's a rough country lift kit, the full spring kit. It comes with a lot of other pieces, but it's probably one of the more common lift kits online. What it doesn't come with, and what you don't have to do, is the steering components on the front end. So that would mean your tie rods and your drag link. Now, the kit that I bought, the lift kit, did come with a pitman arm drop down, or a larger pitman arm, and we're gonna put that on as well. But the reason I'm doing this is for death wobble. Now my steering components, they're a little bit worn out on the front end. The drag link, the bushings on the drag link on both sides are going out, and the tie rods are kind of going out as well. So we're gonna do those, but I didn't want this to be the same video as the lift kit because it's not necessary. If you lift the vehicle, you're not gonna have to do this unless your stuff is worn out. Then it's a good time to go ahead and replace it, since you gotta take part of the drag link off anyways to do the pitman arm. Now that we're under here, I'm gonna try to show you some of the pieces. So this is your drag link, this guy all the way here. It attaches to your pitman arm right here. Let's see, this is the track bar, and I just installed that one. And then this is your tie rod, and then those are the ends right there. And the tie rod ties into the driver's side knuckle and midway through the drag link, and then the drag link ties in over here. So really all we're replacing is this drag link, and I do have the end for it. I'm gonna reuse my collar for this example. And then the tie rod's staying there, but the tie rod ends, those are gonna be replaced. Since hopefully I got the new parts. Now I'm also getting rid of this pitman arm here. Whoops. Let's see. The pitman arm right there is gonna be replaced. I've got a longer one for the lift kit. So all that's gonna come off. The first thing I'm gonna do is pull out all of these. You can kind of see them. It's like these little clips, these metal pins that go through the castle nut. I'm gonna pry all those guys out, and then I can back these nuts off. I do have to punch out this steering stabilizer. I just put it in, so it shouldn't be too difficult. I'm just gonna back the nut off a little bit so it's flush with the bolt, and then smack it out and hang it out of the way. Now this pitman arm, this one, I think the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this sway bar out of the way because I'm actually replacing the bushing because it is also shot. The whole thing wiggles. But I'm gonna get that out of the way, and then I'm gonna try to get my adjustable wrench up there on that nut. It's like 1 5/16 or 33 millimeters, something like that, huge. Of course I don't have the socket, So I'm gonna try to get on it with the pry bar and everything right now to see if I can back it off. And then I do have a Pitman arm puller for that to take it off. And then I'll go through and disassemble the rest of the stuff. So here's what I'm talking about with this castle nut here. It's just got one of these, well, someone's bent it in some type of way, and you just need to pry it up here and then try to pull it out from the other end. It's not a big deal. Well, I guess I didn't buy, I don't know if I have new castle nuts or not for my tie rod ends, but I'm gonna try to keep these intact, so in case I need to reuse them, I can. But they're probably in pretty rough shape after however many years they've been on here, and they may not want to come out in one piece. So wiggle that guy out, and then you're gonna take this castle nut off. And then what you can do is give it a couple good blows right here on the knuckle with like a hammer. I got a 2-pound mini sledge. I'll hit that and it might drop down, it might not. In my case, I don't care about these bushings. These ones seem okay. The drag link is really where it's a lot worse. I might stick a pickle fork in here and then just smack the pickle fork to knock it out, but that can mess up your bushings. So if you're trying to save the tie rod ends to reuse them for whatever reason, you'll want to just hit it with the hammer a number of times right here. I think all these castle nuts are going to be 19mm. For the ones up here, you can't really use an impact or anything if you got them, so I'm just using a big old wrench, and let's see which way I want to push. I don't think I can do it with you guys here in the camera, but maybe. Yeah, they're not that tight. With the castle nuts, sometimes they're not super tight on there. It's not the end of the world. Basically, you have to line up that pin that I was showing you with one of the grooves in this castle up here. So I'll take it off and show it. So a lot of times they're not super tight because you can tighten them all the way down and torque them, but then you got to back them up a little bit to get the pin through right there. One of those castle grooves. So I'm gonna just leave the nut up here on top while I get my pickle fork, and we'll go in there at that. Now the pickle fork is pretty straightforward. Let's see if we can do it here with the camera. But you're just gonna want to get in there like this. Now remember, this certainly probably is gonna mess up the bushing, but my boot is already destroyed and I'm replacing the entire drag link, so. And we're gonna keep going here. Woo! That did it. So you see it kind of drop down there, and then I got a lot of bits and pieces flying up here, and my boot is pretty destroyed. So I'll show you what that should look like once we get it off compared to the new one. Here's what I mean by hitting the knuckle. So got the other side taken off. If I wanted to save this boot for this tie rod end, you would just want to hit the knuckle. I'll see if I can get it to come off right now. Otherwise, you can kind of hit the top here to tap it out. You might want to leave the castle nut on for that so you don't booger the threads. In my case, I may not have a new castle nut, but I know I have a new tie rod end, so I don't care about the threads. Let's see if, I'm gonna hold the other side so I don't fall on my toes. Alright, so I had to hammer the top a bit, but I don't think I messed up the threads at all if I wanted to reuse this. Now, the other thing, I hope the camera's looking at me right now, is I'm gonna leave all these tie rods in their location right now. I don't want to unthread them, the tie rod ends from the tie rod. Not that I actually even could without putting a pipe wrench on it. But, oh wait, I gotta loosen these collars to do that. But, so what I'm gonna do here, is I'm gonna use this to match it up, and I'll show you how I do it with the new stuff that I put together. I'm gonna measure the overall length just so that when I'm putting this back together, I get it somewhere in the ballpark of decent alignment with the front end and the steering. For basically, we're talking about the toe in and out right now. I wanna make sure that I'm somewhat accurate so the thing's not terribly going down the road or I don't mess up the axles at all. I wanna get it sort of in the right ballpark. Now this will work to get me to the grocery store and back. Not really gonna be the best thing. I don't know that I would take it on the highway at all, but it'll get me to the alignment shop and back so they can do an actual alignment on it. Now the other thing to do right now is it's a good time to go ahead and give this thing a once over and just make sure your tie rod isn't bent at all, this steering bar. These things bend really easy and they're hollow on the Cherokees. This is a great opportunity to do a ZJ swap. It gets you a thicker shaft and it's completely solid. So you can give that a shot if you want to swap over to ZJ stuff at the moment. I don't really do any rock crawling with this guy, so I'm leaving the stock thing here. It's fine by me. Let's look at the new parts compared to the old parts. So with this, I'm just measuring from end to end to get me a rough idea of the length that it should be. So it's not going to be perfect, but it'll get me in the ballpark. And we're going to say that's 38 and an eighth. 38 and an eighth. Now the other thing I'll show you, let's see. Let's take the drag link for example. And let's see. That looks better. These ends for your tie rods and your drag links, they shouldn't move this easily. Now your boot also shouldn't be free floating and cracked. But with this guy, you don't want to feel any clicking in there. Or if you can feel grinding, like there's grit in it, that's a bad sign. This one does kind of slip around. It doesn't click a ton, but it's super loose, right? Now this may or may not have been giving me death wobble. I think it had more to do with the track bar in my case, but when I was doing the lift, I wanted to do all this stuff anyways. Now here's another one. Well, let's look at the other end while we're down here. Okay, this is a little bit better. It takes a little more muscle, but it's still not very smooth. And there's not enough resistance on it in my opinion. Let's check the tie rods out. These are better than the drag link, but you can see I can still move it with one finger. And then this end is a little better. Let me show you what one of the new pieces looks like. Say for example, I'll also just tell you guys what had happened to me. My dog is inspecting. I had originally bought the stuff from AutoZone just because I get points there and their main distribution center is right next to me. But I pulled out the parts like I always do and checked them out when I got in the car. And basically the drag link was really no good. A tie rod end I had some luck with, but here's a tie rod from O'Reilly's where I ended up going and getting them, and the drag link as well. But this guy, it is really stiff. You know, I can barely move it with my hands. So that's what they should be like. They should be a lot stiffer, and you shouldn't feel any clicking or like it's got grit in there. And it does come with a new castle nut, luckily, so that's a good deal. And these appear to be hopefully the same, so they should thread into my tie rod. Now, on the back side, there is a Zerk fitting. You gotta insert it. It's an open hole there. I'll put in the, my dog's stealing stuff again. It comes with a little grease Zerk in here, and it comes with a new cotter pin. Awesome. So it comes with a new grease fitting. I'll thread that in there. It's probably 8mm. That'll tighten it down. And then we got our new castle nut and our new cotter pin there. And we can fill this guy up with grease. I got a grease gun for that. All right. let's start taking apart the old stuff. Now to do that, if we move back to the drag link, since this one's loose, it's got the end just fell off the boot. Okay, so it's got a collar right here in the middle of it, and that's what allows you to basically adjust the length, shorten or lengthen this guy. You've got to loosen up the bolts on the collar, and then you can kind of just twist this guy. One of the threads are gonna be right thread, one of the threads are gonna be left thread. So I'm going righty-tighty right now on this top end, and that's actually loosening the drag link end and taking it out altogether. And then the other one will probably be normal thread, so lefty-loosey is taking that bottom end out. And then I'll just be left with my collar to put the new drag link in and the new drag link arm, set the length, and then I can put it back up in there. All right, a little backlit, my dog's chewing in the background, but we're gonna do the pitman arm now since I had to use some heat on the tie rod ends and it's outside cooling. Burned myself once as well. So this is, I rented the tool from AutoZone. It's 57016 is the part number. All it is this. It's pretty straightforward how it's gonna work. Here's the new pitman arm. You can tell it's just gonna drop everything down, maybe in 2 inches or so, 3 inches. And we just wanna remove this pitman arm from the steering shaft. And then we also wanna make sure that we put this in the exact same position as the other one came off. So it's right about there. You don't wanna put this on like that or like that, right? You wanna make sure it's the exact same way it came off. That's really the only thing you need to know. So this guy works like this. You just need to slide this up and over, and then you're gonna line this guy up down here. It goes right in the shaft. And it is a 3/4 for this one. Ooh, spinning a bit. Maybe I should have done this before I pulled the arm off. So my pitman arm is actually spinning, so I may set the drag link that I took apart back up in there to stop it from spinning. Or you could have somebody hold it so it doesn't spin. We've got a number of options here. What do I want to do? All right, well, I'm going to come back to this one. So I'll cut the camera off so you guys don't have to see all this. But let's figure something out. All right, so I just put the drag link back in there momentarily, and that was able to hold the thing on there long enough for me to get this guy off, I think. Ah, damn it. So it doesn't fall off again. What I should have done, now I'm realizing, is I should have put a mark on the face of the pitman arm and a mark on the shaft housing up top there, so that it would have been a lot easier for me to line it up in the end, but whatever. Now this guy's coming back out. Take off the other side. Now I can take that thing apart again. And let's look at our pitman. I don't know. It might have slid. Let's see if it'll. See how much play.
No. So that's how it was. Now I'm gonna take it off and I'm gonna clean all this up with brake clean, and I'm gonna add some grease to it before I actually reassemble the new one. That's my game plan anyways. For the most part, it's straight. Coming down. All right, so it's sort of keyed, so it shouldn't be that easy for you to mess it up. There's some different grooves basically that should allow you to put the thing back on the right way. And the new one is also grooved. So, yeah, right up there, just like that. Now, I'm gonna add some grease to this and then we'll put this back on. I'll put the giant 33mm or 1 5/16 nut back on and we'll tighten it up there. It wasn't that tight, to be honest, but I'll get it on there tight enough, and I'll use Loctite on these threads as well. And then I can reassemble the drag link and tie rod. Okay, we matched up length for the drag link. And I've got it set into place here. Tassel nuts on both sides. I am just trying to get this steering stabilizer to line back up. Okay, I don't know how much of the last clip you guys saw since the camera cut out, the SD card died. But I'm just throwing in the tie rod's already in, I'm putting in the cotter pins. Cut off the excess and then hammer it down as best you can so that you don't cut yourself on this stuff the next time you're in here. Now, I think I already said this, but in case I didn't, re-grease all of these Zerk fittings once you get everything tightened up. They do come greased, but it does not hurt to re-grease them. I'll put in the other cotter pin. So I'm going to finish tightening up all of these, or putting in all these cotter pins, and then I'll tighten my pitman arm since I had to do that step. But then the last thing to do is just tighten down all of your collars. These guys that are still loose here and here. Make sure you tighten all that down to lock in your alignment. I mean, I guess you don't need to go crazy tight right now since I'm taking this to the alignment shop tomorrow, and so should you. Take it there almost immediately after you do it if you can, and get this professionally aligned. But otherwise, I'll tighten that down and then I'll show you how to do these sway bar bushings because I got new ones since I needed them. Sway bars back in, everything is tightened down. The only thing left to do now is to take this guy over to the alignment shop and then you should be good to go.